Hello everybody, this is our second day of circles. So today we're going to talk about how to rewrite an equation in standard form. So when it's given like this, we are going to rewrite it in the standard form for a circle, which is the one that we studied in the last lesson. And then the second part of the notes today will be graphing circles. And this is pretty straightforward because if you know the center and the radius, that should be pretty easy to graph because it's just a circle. So we will start with this part, the rewriting, which is going to involve completing the square. So the goal here is to get it from this form into this form. And again, you're going to have to complete the square to do that. So here are the steps. You're going to first prepare the terms. So you're going to group all of your x terms and leave a space, and then group the y terms and leave a space. So what do I mean by that? So here I see that we have two x terms. We have x squared and we have 16x. And then we have two y terms. We have y squared and we have negative 22y. So we're going to just rearrange this so that the x's are grouped together and the y's are grouped together, and we're going to leave a space. That's for completing the square. So this is going to get a little long. I recommend writing all the way over here. So we're going to have x squared plus 16x plus blank. Okay, then we're going to have, now we're going to do the y's. So it's a positive y squared. It is a negative 22y plus blank. Now, we're going to move the constant. When I say move the constant, we mean to the other side and leave two spaces. Okay, so here we left one space and one space, but in total that was two spaces. So on this side, we're going to need to add two things. But I'm going to add this 20 over to the right-hand side, so it would become a positive 20. And then we're going to have plus blank, so two spaces. So now you can see we have a lot going on here. What we're going to do is we're going to complete the square for this set of terms and for this set of terms. So we did study completing the square in semester 1. So I hope that this refresher will be that, a refresher. So I'm not teaching you how to complete the square, I'm just reminding you how to do it. These are the steps. So what you want to do is take half of the linear term and square it. So the linear term is the b when you have ax squared plus bx plus c. So it's the b. So in this case, right, we have ax squared plus bx plus c. So you're going to take half of the b and then square it. So I'll show you down here. To find missing term. Okay, half of b and square it. That's when we did b over 2 squared. Okay, so in this first one, that would be 16 over 2 squared. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 8 squared is 64. So the one that we're adding here is 64, which means that since we added a 64 to this side, we have to add it to this side. Okay, so that's this step, add to both sides. Now we have to do this for both this x set of terms and the y's. So we're going to do the same thing. Take half of this and then square it. Half of negative 22 would be negative 11, and negative 11 squared is 121. 121. And then you are going to finally factor and simplify. So because we've completed the square now, this is a perfect square trinomial, which means that we can factor it. Right, so the two terms that multiply to 64 and add to 16 are 8 and 8. So this is going to be x plus 8 squared. And then this is going to be y minus 11 squared. Okay, so the term that ends up right here will always be half of this one. So the number that you got from the b over 2, it's the b over 2. And then you have to combine all of these. So 84, 205, I hope, 205. And there you have it. Now it's in this form, standard form for a circle. So the center, it's not asking you, but just to review, the center of this circle would be at, this would be -8, 11, and then the radius would be the square root of 205. Because remember that this is r squared. And that's that. That's how you do it. So let's practice that one more time. So I'm going to group my x terms together, leave a space, then group the y terms. So I took care of that one and that one. Now I have these y terms. And now this was a positive 32. I want to subtract that to the other side. So on the right hand side, it's going to become negative 32. And then here we have to leave 2 blanks. Now we're completing the square on both of these sets of terms. So we have this one here, and we have this one here. We take half of this and then square it. Half of -12 is -6. -6 squared is 36. Half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16. I have to add both of these to this side as well to keep my equation balanced, right? Whatever you add to one side, you have to add to the other side. Now I can factor. This is going to be x minus 6. Remember, this will always be half of your b term up here. Don't forget the squared. This one will be y plus 4 squared. And then over here, -32 plus 36 is 4, plus 16 is 20. There you go. And then what would the center be? And what would the radius be for this problem? You try that. Okay, so that was, I'd say, the harder part of the lesson. Graphing is pretty straightforward. And just so you know, in some of the homework problems, you might have to do 2 of these in one. So all of these ones that we are graphing are in the standard form for a circle, which makes them really easy to, maybe not easy, but quick to graph. If it's not already in standard form, you would need to do that first. So when you graph, you want the equation in standard form. Okay, so if it's not already in standard form, you get it in standard form by doing what we did here. Okay, so how do we do it? We are going to first identify the center and the radius, just like we did on this page right here. So the center of this, because there's nothing being added or subtracted, the center is 0, 0, the origin. So I'm going to plot my center. To save time in this video, or I don't know, okay, I'll just label a 1 and a 1. So the scale here is 1. We are counting by 1. I'm not going to label the whole thing to save time. And then the radius, remember that this is r squared. So r squared equals 36, which means that r is the square root of 36, which is 6. So r is 6. So now we know the center is 0, the radius is 6. The radius is half of the diameter. So that means that this, from your center, you need to go out 6, basically in all directions. So I like to just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. come up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then pencil will make this a little easier to kind of sketch it as a circle. Your circles are not going to be perfect. Like mine is not perfect, but that's how you do it. That's our circle. Looks a little more like a lemon, but okay. So that's the process. So here, the center is, let me point something else out. Remember that in the general form, it's x minus h. Okay, so x minus h means that h is positive 3 and k is positive 4. So when it's a minus here, your center is actually going to have a positive value. And then r, remember this is r squared is 25, which means that r is 5. So I'm going to plot, I'm just going to label my scale. I'm going to plot the center at 3, 4. That's the center. From the center, the radius is 5, so I need to come out 5 in all of these directions. So horizontally and then vertically. And then that's your circle. Not a perfect, if you have a compass, you could use that. You could just measure this with a compass and then spin it, you'll get a nicer circle. Okay, and then let's try our last one. So this last one we have x minus h, so h is 5. And here we have y plus 4, so really that means y minus negative 4. So k is negative 4. That's the center. And then notice that this is not a perfect square. So here our radius is going to be the square root of 41. Really, you guys, if it's like a number that's under 144, I would expect that you could approximate it without a calculator. If it's a huge number, go ahead and use a calculator. But here we can easily get an approximation without a calculator for our graphing purposes. So what are the two perfect squares that are closest to the number 41? So the perfect square before 41 would be 36, and the next one would be 49. The square root of 36 is 6. The square root of 49 is 7. So the square root of 41 has to be between these two numbers. So it's going to be 6 point something. We don't know exactly what. Maybe, let's see, maybe like 6.4-ish, 6.3, 6.4. You could try a calculator to test it out. But either way, for graphing, you know it's between 6 and 7. That's enough information. So you do not need a calculator for this. Okay, so same process. We're going to plot our center, 5, negative 4. And then from here, I'm going to go 6 point something. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then just a little beyond that. So in between 6 and 7, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, around there. And then do that 2 more times. And then you have your circle. Or hopefully this should really come out a little more, and then it would be a better circle. So that's that. Now, a few things that you might see that we didn't do on here, but you should be able to do this backwards. So let's say I gave you this circle, you should be able to write the equation. Because remember, all you need to write the equation is to be able to identify the center and the radius, and then you can work your way backwards. So if I gave you the circle, you could first find the center. That would be your h and your k, and then count. What's the radius? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you would square that to get the r squared term. So you should be able to use the information that I have given you in these 2 lessons to do different types of problems. I didn't do every type of circle problem that exists, but again, as long as you know the center, the radius, you know this form, you understand what the graph looks like, and you understand how to convert from this form to this form, you should be able to do pretty much any circle problem that's thrown at you. So again, if you need help, check Canvas for my Zoom office hours. You can always email me as well. And I hope you are doing well, staying healthy and happy. Miss you all. I'll talk to you soon.